Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another One Leeds video. Welcome back. It is Connor. We are here with your weekly edition of The Debrief, your first show of the day, and a special one. A special one because there is no Gabe. There is no LUFC Lewis. There is no Brownie. There is no former members of The Debrief. We're going old school, baby. It's just me and Oscar for this one. Yes, if you've been a fan of the duos stuff over the however many years. This will be a bit of an OG moment for all of you guys. But thank you to everyone in the chat who's here for this one. We've got a Chelsea preview, we've got your lineup predictions, we've got all the good stuff. Leicester reaction, Connor Chaplin saying that Leicester's a bigger game than Leeds United or a tougher game than Leeds United. We've got loads to get into, so make sure you're slapping a like on the video. That'd be much appreciated as always. But yeah, what we'll do, everyone, is we'll get Oscar in the chat now because I've been keeping you guys waiting. How you doing, mate? You all good?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How's things for you?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Always could be better, of course, but all
Of
good,
course, of
mate.
course.
Yeah, how's things on your end, mate? How was the game at the weekend? Was it all good?
I'll remember it for probably the rest of my life. That game, to be honest with you. In terms of we were down and out, weren't we? Let's be honest. If it was a boxing match on 70, 80 minutes, the towel probably gets thrown in, doesn't it? But that is the joy of football, isn't it? You know, as soon as it went to 1-1, I was thinking, yeah, we'll win this. There wasn't any doubt in my mind we were going to win that game at 1-1. Just the atmosphere, the momentum shift. It was just no doubt at that moment that we were going to 1-1. I didn't think we would win maybe 3-1, but anyway, massive win. The perception of the whole season's changed now. And all of a sudden, it's the case of, right, it's a four-horse race now all of a sudden. Yeah, rather than 3, 2, whatever it's been all season, it's a four-horse race for 2 spots now because Leicester have been backed into this all of a sudden.
Yeah, it does feel like that, mate. It does feel like that. Carol has donated a member for a 1 month. Thanks so much, Carol. And there's loads of comments in the chat as well. We'll get them just fresh up now. Hi, Oscar. Only just settled down from Friday. Good evening, Connor, says Paul. Give us Gabe now. He's not available. He's not available. All Leeds TV reunion as well. Yeah, that's it. But yeah, Oscar, it seemed like, I mean, I couldn't unfortunately get there at the weekend, but it just seemed unbelievable, mate. I mean, but it's funny, isn't it, Oscar, how the narrative is all of a sudden Leeds were absolutely battered. We didn't deserve anything. And maybe it was a little bit tighter than a few people thought.
Yeah, I think so. I think it wasn't the game I was expecting, really. I think I said to you on the Thursday before it, on the previous debrief, that I thought it was going to be a tight game. I didn't see more than 2 goals in the game. And then you kind of realise after 10 minutes, no, this is going to be very different to that game in November. This is very open. Both teams are defending on the nose, very much taking high risks. Both teams playing a high line. Both teams going for the jugular, really. But yeah, I think listen, at 70 minutes, if we'd have been 3-0 down at that point, I wouldn't have had many complaints. But at the same time, we could have been 3-1 up. It was just one of those games that was crazy and chaotic. And that's what kind of like transpired, really. You know, one moments win football matches, moments decide these big games. And those moments this season have gone our way. And let's be honest, after Farker made those substitutions, the whole game shifted. I thought we dominated the last 15, 20 minutes or so of the game. You know, even without the goals, I think the whole shift of the game was totally different. Vestergaard and Fars were totally tested in that last sort of 15, 20 minutes and stretched. So, yeah, you have to give great credit to us in terms of we were adaptable to the game. And we just found a way to win. And that just feels like what we're kind of not just done for the last sort of 9 weeks or so. We've kind of done that all season. You know, in the games where we haven't played so well at home, we've still found a way to do it. And we've got better at doing that away from home as well. And listen, you're playing the league leaders who are on course to break every single championship records imaginable. You're not going to have it all your own way. I think over the 180 minutes we played against Leicester this season, I would be surprised if a team puts together a better 180 minutes than that. You know, I just can't see it. You know, I think we were exceptional in many ways. You know, in terms of how we adapted to the game and we got the job done. And listen, people talk about Leicester having injuries. So did we. You know, we had big injuries in that game. So you know, it swings and roundabouts. You know, all in all, we took 6 points from 6 against them, and I'm not too fussed about performance. But for what it's worth, I thought it was decent enough.
Yeah, me too, mate. I didn't think it was amazing. I thought for 80 minutes they were probably the better team, Oscar.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
overall, let's be brutally honest, mate. We had 3 or 4 really good opportunities. You know, Nonto, I don't know what he's doing there, cutting in his left hand side. Somerville, brilliant defending from Vestergaard, and Yoel Perot. Unfortunately, Oscar, it was another game. We were just speaking about it earlier on the Patreon, where with Yoel Peru, I was looking at it, and I think we spoke about it, didn't we? Multiple times off air, that you were expecting this to be a coming of age game for him, where he's not just one of these players who almost adds when we're already winning the game, a game winner, a match winner. And I felt in that with those first two opportunities, it was almost symptomatic of what we've seen of him so far. And I think that would have really changed the game. I really do. An early goal for Leeds United. But unfortunately, mate, still a few of the same issues with Yoel Perot. And as of right now, you are 100% choosing Patrick Bamford over him, aren't you?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And it's not just in terms of the quality of both players, it's the difference in profile of Patrick Bamford in terms of how crucial he is to us, in terms of how much better the press was. And it wasn't just that. I thought Dan James coming on, I thought massively improved us. I think having two outlets on the pitch who can get those runs in behind and, can keep the ball high up the pitch, really. I think Dan James has improved at that massively. But we always know that's been Patrick Bamford's biggest strength. Yes, I still think Joel Perot's the better finisher. But I still look at Joel Perot and think he's more of an impact sub for us. I don't think he's someone that can start matches for us at this moment in time, or should be starting matches for us when everyone's fit, especially against Leicester at home. Leicester at home, you're going to be starved of possession. I think we had this discussion beforehand, in terms about maybe Nonto dropping into the false nine and starting a different kind of system without Joel Perot, perhaps. And maybe in hindsight, that's what we should have done. But ultimately, you saw the difference in performance. And that's why I'm not too concerned with kind of the sloppy moments in that first sort of 70 minutes or so. I think there's a few times where I saw Joe Rodon try and pick out that pass into Joel Perot, and it got dispossessed, and the narrative turned into, can Joe Rodon handle the big occasions? Well, no, I don't think it's just that. I think he's just expecting, Joel Perot to make that run or to come to feet and be active and be coming to the ball or moving away from the ball. And it's just his movement looked off, all night, really, and ball retention wasn't there. And ultimately, the two chances he did get, uncharacteristically for him, he snatched at, really, especially that first one. Yes, it's on his right foot, but really that's one that he expects to be on target at the very least. So, yeah, Joel Perot didn't really do his case for starting games over Patrick Bamford any good at all. If anything, it's massively weakened now. That was his big opportunity, really, to start games in the 9 for us. And the facts are, in terms of the profile we need, that is Patrick Bamford at this moment in time.
Yeah, I was so elated for numerous players on the pitch, to be honest, Oscar, because I think what we've got to take into consideration is that Leicester side. It was a Premier League game. I felt it was two teams going at it. I think Jurgen Klopp's just actually come out and said, hasn't he, that he watched the Leeds Leicester game and he said, wow, so he watched it and it was a great sort of feature length movie, if you will, a great advert for the Championship, but in a strange sort of way, Oscar, it's a feature length movie for the Premier League. It's not one of those that it's not really a Championship ding dong. I sort of understood what he meant. I think he referenced West Bromwich Albion and Hull or another side, and I get that sort of game. But this one was a real. I felt Championship level. The quality was very, very high, and I tell you what, Oscar, with the greatest of respect to him, and this just shows what a deal Leeds United have done by taking 12 points off Ipswich and Leicester in particular. But I thought especially in that second game. The way Leeds held in the game, Meslier pulling out some great saves, the focus and concentration there was up until the 80th minute and beyond, of course, the resilience was there. But to do that against a really, really, really good team, I mean, let's be honest, I think even Leeds United on their pomp, 8, 9 out of 10 from the start. So we have to bear in mind, Oscar, there, we started very, very well. We were on the front foot from the start, but that, it felt like Leicester controlled it a little bit more. And I know we had personnel changes from that first game. I do think Ethan Ampadu out of that midfield allowed Keenan Dewsbury Hall to dictate the game a little bit more. But overall, Leeds did so well to quell a very, very, very good Leicester City side. And you could see how good they were, really, couldn't you, in that first 45, 60 minutes?
Oh, absolutely. And I think in terms of the game in general, I think the quality was definitely Premier League level. I think you compare it to the 2 games against Leicester last season, it's so different. And supposedly last season, there were better players on the pitch. But in terms of how both systems, I mean, they were both awful games last season, really, in terms of there was no tempo to them at all. I think, just that drop down, both teams under new managers, better managers than what they had previously, you saw the difference it made, really. And players just able to express themselves, not just for us. I think Mavididi, yes, his finishing was shocking on the night, but I thought he had a really good performance, to be honest.
I thought he was a lot better than the first game. A lot better.
He was the player who was worrying me. When he came off, I was thinking, okay, that is a surprising one, in terms of when
it almost felt, Oscar, like in this game, in the first game, it was very Fatawu dominant, wasn't it? Fatawu against Byron, but it felt in this one, it was very, very much. It was almost Enzo said, look, I want it to be Mavididi versus Archie Gray, a central midfielder. Archie Gray is 17 years of age.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was so much a fact of Gray doing badly against him. I just think Mavididi just produced, some fantastic skill, and at times he was up against Rodon in terms of how narrow he was sometimes playing. But Dewsbury Hall as well. I think you mentioned as well, Conor, in terms of Ampadu not being there as a natural out and out six. As good as Kamara and Gruev are, they're not natural sixes. They're more eights to me. So yes, it can work in a double pivot, but sometimes you maybe just want that natural six in there just to sit on Dewsbury Hall. But I think we dealt with that pretty well towards the end of the game. In terms of when it was 2-1 up, I was thinking, right, this is where Dewsbury Hall probably comes alive at this moment. Because everyone's emotional at that point. You're 2-1 up, you're trying to hold on, or you're trying to push on for 3-1. But we did a really good job on Dewsbury Hall at that point. And I think at times you saw Ampadu step into midfield occasionally. When Conor Roberts came on, Roberts kind of drifted inside a little bit. Ampadu pushed on. It was more of a back three at times. So that was an interesting one as well. So it was a really good tactical game. I think watching it from where I watch it, top tier of the East Stand, you really saw how both teams were playing really unorthodox kind of championship systems, really, and how high both lines were. I always felt, sort of with half an hour to go, Dan James against that Leicester high line causes problems, and I think that's ultimately what happened. But at the same time, Mavididi caused our high line a lot of problems. So yeah, definite qualities there. I think you saw with both teams that they will need to adapt or strengthen in certain areas to survive in the Premier League. I do think still, even with that game. But yeah, the quality was very, very high, and that would have definitely passed for a Premier League football match. So yeah, listen, all we can do now is just hope that Leicester are affected by that a little bit psychologically. I'm not sure they will be. I still think Leicester will get top two. I think ultimately that first 70 minutes, you saw a really, really good side. And I think, to be honest with you, that's the best football I've seen Leicester play all season, really, in terms of how they played. I think they really shone to the occasion, but just didn't take their chances. And ultimately, we were clutch when we needed to be ourselves, and that's what won us the game, really.
Well, yeah, and I think that's another thing, Oscar. I think that's what we've got to focus on as well as Leeds fans. It wasn't our best performance of the season whatsoever, in my personal opinion, especially, that first 75, 80 minutes, but it was different in terms of how we just stuck in, as I just mentioned, the resilience. And Leicester, I completely agree with you. I mean, I've watched Leicester a lot this season, a lot more than other sides. But I don't really know why. I think it's because on my legal stream, Leeds and Leicester are very close together, so I'll always just stick them on if there's a bit of a break in play, or if Leeds are playing a different day or whatever, Leicester are playing later, Leeds are playing earlier, whatever, and I'll watch Leicester, and I will agree with you, they're just up for it, weren't they? And I think that was the false sense of security some Leeds fans were falling into, which I couldn't believe, where it's like it won't mean that much to them because they'll still be 9 points clear, or they'll be however many points clear if they beat Leeds, and they won't really care about this game, when evidently how Leicester came out, you couldn't be further from the truth, really.
No, absolutely not. I think Leicester saw that first 70 minutes in terms of how they wanted it to go. It went kind of thing in terms of they had control of Rutter. I think I have to give credit to Leicester. Listen, it was a high quality game. As much as we were really, really good in terms of how we got the 3 points out of it and adapted ourselves tactically, you've got to say Leicester really did get things right in that first 70 minutes in terms of how they dealt with Rutter. Was very impressive. I think it's the best I've seen a team deal with Rutter tactically all season. Somerville as well, maybe to a lesser extent on Somerville, but certainly Rutter they dealt with really well. And yeah, at 1-0, you're thinking, this Leicester team, there's no way psychologically they're not going to win the league at this point. And I think really at that point, you're looking at it and thinking, they win at Leeds away, they probably do go and break the points record after that, because they've got the most difficult game out of the way done and they've won it. So it is a championship, isn't it? It just changed the whole mindset. We've looked at Southampton, they've gone 25 games unbeaten and lost 3 of the last 4. This league, as much as quality is a massive factor, psychologically, this league can test you. You know, the fact you're playing Tuesday, Saturday, Friday, Tuesday. You know, as soon as you go on that little bit of a bad roll, it can really, really affect you in that kind of sense. But yeah, full credit to how Leicester set up in the game. You know, sometimes it does take two to tango, and Leicester definitely did. You know, add a lot to that game on Friday night, and hopefully, you know, that is the best team we play all season. You know, in terms of getting through that test. But yeah, you only have to look at individually. You know, the battles on that pitch, the Premier League quality battles there. You know, in terms of Joe Rodon and Wout Faz, sorry. You know, both I thought had really good games, to be honest. But you know, in terms of their individual mistakes in the game, get picked up on so much more in a game like that because you know they've got the quality to expose that, if you like. You know, in terms of Dewsbury Hall, if you make a mistake against Dewsbury Hall, all of a sudden it's a goal scoring chance. And I think you saw that against Leicester. And it's different to what we've had all season. You felt it in the ground as well. You know, in the first 15 minutes, it's like, oh, this isn't attack versus defence. This is attack versus attack. I think it's one of the very few times we've had that all season. You know, we know Ipswich came to have a go at us, but we were dominant in that game. Other teams have maybe had a little bit of a go, but we've always been dominant and had the edge at home. This was a game where it was 50-50 and ultimately quality won it at the end of the day from our side, which is something that Leicester won't have very often all season either. So really, it felt like a little bit, listen, both teams still need to get promoted. It felt like a little bit of almost a warm-up of an idea of what the Premier League would be like under Daniel Farke in terms of what the games would look like for us.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree, mate. Rajiv says, evening, Conor and Oscar, how does play recovery get impacted in a situation like 4 games in 10 days? Isn't it unfair on the players irrespective of the opposition they face? Thoughts? Yeah, Rajiv, I guess it's just the modern era now, you know, all these games that we're playing, especially championship level, but it is with all these new competitions getting proposed at the top level as well. You know, these guys aren't going to be playing 1 game a week very soon. It's going to turn into 2, 3 games a week. It's going to turn into ridiculous sort of schedules, you know, per sort of 3 or 4 months when it comes to international games as well. The ramping those up. I think the football world now is just going absolutely crazy because the demand they're putting on footballers is just absolutely nuts. But that's in line with new training methods, you know, new psychological, physiological developments, new diets, and all this sort of stuff. So it's all intertwining. And then these sort of FIFA, you know, the FIFA corporation are thinking, oh, well, they can play more games then. The body is going to break down. And I think this is just filtering into football, unfortunately. But Paul says, is Leicester a better team than us, guys? Paul, I think from my perspective, quickly from you, Oscar, but is Leicester a better team than us? Because I do want to get into Chelsea.
I think at the start of the season, you say the reason they have this points gap on us is because they have been a better team over the season so far. But I think from what we've seen in the 2 games, I think we're definitely close to being equal or even. I wouldn't say there's much
Well,
in it.
I think you've got to be. I think, you know, when you talk about Leicester being a better side than us, you know, we've not dominated either game, but I still wouldn't say
Neither have they really.
no, and
You know,
that's what
yeah.
I was about to say. I don't think Leicester have dominated, and it's still reflected that they were definitely the better team in that second game, but we were the better team in that first game. And alongside that, you know, we've ended the 2 legs with a 4-1 win on aggregate. You know, I mean that I feel that that's pretty conclusive, to be honest with you. But in terms
We
of
can catch them. For me,
we ca-
that's the way I'd probably go
Oscar,
about that.
Oscar, I think it's a lot. I still think a 6-point turnover is a lot. But yes,
Hmm.
we can. We narrowing that
I
gap
think
is
over is
fantastic.
it 12 games? So you're
Yeah.
thinking 1 point every 2 games is what we're going to have to make up on Leicester, and it is going to be tough. I'm not saying we will do it, but I think it is possible. You know, in terms of I don't think there's enough of a gap in terms. To be honest, with all 4 teams, I'd say I can see us being quite close together come the end of the season. You know, I think Ipswich is still. I think we've spoken about Ipswich last week. I can see a scenario where the gap between Leicester in first, say if it is Leicester that finished the season top, and Southampton in fourth, if Southampton finish fourth, I could see it being like less than 10 points quite easily, probably even less than that, to be honest. So that is quite unheard of at championship level. So I do think it is super close in terms of the quality of the 4 sides, really. I don't think there's a big margin at all.
No, 100%. Bradley says, I just want Oscar's old mic back. We don't. We don't. I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. Chelsea don't need us. Okay, everybody in the comment section below, let us know your thoughts on this. Leeds playing Chelsea tomorrow night. We already know Rutter is going to be out for this one. We know Somerville's going to be out for this one. Looks like Bamford and Dan James are potentially out as well. Straight off the bat, is this precautionary for Huddersfield coming 3 days later, Saturday midday? Or is this sort of maybe a longer scale thing when it comes to these players, Oscar? What's the shocking truth behind it, mate? And on the back of that, I want to ask everybody in the comment section. Limey's just asked me, what is the shocking truth? Well, I think the shocking truth now is how these cup competitions are absolutely dying, Oscar. And I find it shocking personally that we are going into a game against one of our probable top 3-4 rivals historically, top 2-3
Top
rivals.
two, I'd say, personally.
Yeah. Top two. And I know a lot of the older lads in the chat, lads and ladies, will say probably some of them may say first, some of them may say second in Chelsea at the Bridge. Everybody will be looking to that and thinking, oh my God, what a game. But it's almost got to a level now where you feel maybe Daniel Farke's looking at it, resting a few players. And Leeds fans, let's be honest, mate, the trending topic at this moment in time, it's not us playing Chelsea. The trending topic at this moment in time is, are we going to have enough members fit for Huddersfield away 12:30 on Saturday?
And that's the priority. You know, as much as I don't want to talk down the game because it's absolutely massive tomorrow night. Not just in terms of the rivalry, in terms of seeing where we're actually at in terms of the Premier League. You know, this is the benchmark. We're using the mid-table Premier League side. Let's be honest, Chelsea in terms of quality are probably better than mid-table as well. So it's a good benchmark tomorrow.
Just a bit, mate.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
It's
I mean, do you know what as well, Oscar, just a little bit of a tangent for you to answer as well. I was having this conversation the other day, and even when they lost that cup final against Liverpool, the strength in depth that lot have is quite terrifying, to be honest with you. So when we're looking at strength in depth and what we can bring to the table with all the injuries we suddenly have, it's going to be a different game, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that is what it is tomorrow. I think it is a big benchmark for us. And listen, I'm under no illusions that Chelsea, probably in every position, have got better players than us. You know, it says on paper, certainly. I'd say I can't think of one position where you'd say, yeah, we've got better quality there. And that's to be expected against a team that spent £1 billion at the end of the day. But I still think we can go there and win. Even with injuries, I still think we've got the qualities and character and style that can hurt Chelsea in transition. I think you've seen.
Wow,
I'd say I should have. Yeah, top two in England is probably Chelsea, but obviously top three overall. We all know who number one is.
I was more surprised by Chelsea's two. Anyway, sorry, mate.
Yeah, there's a lot of Leeds fans I know would say Chelsea over Man United in terms of the rivalry in that lot, and yeah, it's a fair shout. But either way, it is a must-win in many ways tomorrow. It is one of those games where we can't go there and embarrass ourselves, but I just don't see us doing that. But the Huddersfield game, despite having said all of that, is still the priority for me. You know, in terms of as much as I want to have a real cup run, and listen, if we win against Chelsea, all of a sudden you're one game from Wembley, 2 games from the final at that point. But look, you still got to play the percentages. The reality is promotion is the priority. Promotion's the more realistic target for us at this moment in time. Listen, if we get into the quarters, I will have a different kind of thinking about it, etc., etc. But for me, that Huddersfield game is still a priority in terms of where we want to be this season. And it does give an opportunity to players who haven't played much this season to play tomorrow. You know, I don't think there's a massive drop-off in quality. You know, whoever plays tomorrow, really, in terms of, you know, if Somerville doesn't play, you've got Nonto and Dan James. You know, there's different options there.
Oscar, you don't believe that. If Ethan Ampadu isn't playing in that side, or if a Joe Roden isn't playing in that side, or if a Rutter isn't playing that, how do we replicate those profiles, mate? How do we replicate? Listen, hey, we can talk. Of course, we can talk about Somerville. We can talk about a lot of the wide players when you're looking at maybe James or an Anthony. I still think this, and me and you have had chats about this. I still think the quality drop off from a Roden to the next body, or an Ampadu to the next body. Who? And we will get into this. I will be looking at resting 100%. I think it flies over with the question of, you know, are we really looking to win this game? And do we have a serious drop-off in quality? And I think we do when we look at that strength in depth.
Yeah, there's a drop-off in quality, but my point was, in terms of who we're playing, whoever plays tomorrow night, if we have our full strength 11 out, still on paper, Chelsea will have a stronger 11 in pretty much
Yeah.
every single position. That's the point I was making in terms of the case for resting that lot. And as well as you look at that Huddersfield game as well, if say Dan James went in and started that Huddersfield game, he'd be starting. When did Dan James last start? Was it? I'm trying to think when it was. Was it Norwich? I think Norwich, Preston.
Yeah, I was thinking
It
Preston.
was a while
To be honest.
ago. So you're thinking going into a Yorkshire derby, having not started the game, in a month and a half, it doesn't seem great to me that. And then all of a sudden you've got a cup game. You're thinking Dan James against Premier League opposition that are going to play a high line in transition. I quite like that, to be honest. Listen, I'd love Somerville to start tomorrow, but if we are going to rest players, then tomorrow probably is the time to do it.
He can't.
It won't
Oscar,
go down well.
Oscar, he can't. He can't.
I don't think he will make that many changes, to be honest. I can't.
Really?
I think there will be some changes. I don't think there'll be more than, saying since that starting 11 that started against Leicester, I don't think there'll be more than 2 or 3 changes, personally.
I'd be really. I'd be because then I'm then looking at him. If you get a couple of the key players going down with the niggle, I'm looking at him directly and thinking we're going to a Huddersfield game. It's tin pot, but for those guys, it's the biggest game of the season. But we're then going to Huddersfield at the weekend, biggest game of the season. They're off the back of a 2-1 win with a couple of massive players potentially, and this is all hypothetical, but out. And I really, if look, Oscar, if we to be brutally honest with each other, if a Rodon was injured, or even if a Rutter was injured in that game and Farkas put them in, I'd be very, very unhappy with him after that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But it's one of those where I look at it and say there's not really a right or wrong answer. I think in terms of, you look at it from a momentum point of view, in terms of the fact we've won 9 on the bounce. Do you want to keep that going as best as we can and just keep the same 11 going, kind of thing? And listen, under Bielsa, it didn't work the first season when we didn't rotate, but the second season it did work in terms of keeping that continuity going. And when we came back from the lockdown, it was Saturday, Tuesday, all the way to the end of the season. Sometimes we're playing 3 games in 6 days and that lot, and we didn't rotate at all at that stage. That worked for us quite well because we just kept that momentum going. So there's a case for and against it. There'll be people in the comments who really want to see a full strength team and absolutely
let us know. Let us know, everyone. I'm fascinated.
There'll also be people who, in terms, and there isn't a right or wrong answer. I can see the case either way. I'm not going to be angry either way with what Farke does. And listen, if Rodon picks up an injury or Somerville picks up an injury, there is no doubt there'll be a drop off in quality. And that is a concern to me in terms of the Championship. But I'm not too concerned if Rodon and Somerville are rested tomorrow, because realistically, we're going to beat Chelsea. Probably not.
How do you replace a Jorginho Rutter? He is irreplaceable with what he brings, but is it just simply a Perot Bamford too?
I actually think Willie Gnonto could go into the 10 role. I do think he's got the qualities to play centrally. I think
would he do that? Would he do that, or would it be Perot Bamford in your opinion?
I think most likely Perot. I would have thought. I think in terms of the form Gnonto's showing on that right hand side, I'd imagine Somerville's out as well. Probably Gnonto to the left, possibly. But I think it will be Perot central. I think we will still, try that in terms of Perot just playing behind Bamford. But yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? We haven't really got that ideal Jorginho Rutter replacement. We can't hide from that. If Jorginho Rutter isn't on the pitch for Leeds United, that is a big blow for us. You saw in that Leicester game, the first 70 minutes, when Rutter was ineffective, how much less vibrant the attack was in terms of going forward, without Rutter at his absolute best. But when he got into the game, the whole kind of game just shifted. And it wasn't just down to Rutter, it was down to the players around him. But when you do get Rutter on the ball, problems happen for the opposition. And certainly tomorrow night, looking at Caicedo, looking at Enzo Fernandez, quality players on the ball, but off the ball is where I think you can test them, especially Fernandez.
Oscar as well. We're looking at something where, we're talking about it now. And of course, you're going to get more excited. Of course, you want Leeds to go full strength. It's just such a pity that we're in the, and we said this last week, that there always seems to be something on the line with Leeds United when it comes to cup competitions. It always seems to be in a battle when it comes to relegation, a battle when it comes to promotion. It was almost the idyllic scenario was when we were cruising to a 9th placed finish under Marcelo Bielsa, and for us to have a lovely Crawley season. A lovely cup run then, but we didn't have the depth then. It was Mark Wright dipping us out. But Colin Kerwin says, wife had another, honestly, Colin's had about 400 children. when Leeds have been playing. So shout out to you, Cole. It's all going well. It's all the swimmers are going good for you, mate. Colin says, wife had another baby boy during the Leicester match. Scum and Southampton then lost. How can we avoid being next year's Burnley is my main concern right now. Hope DF is ready for the battle in the Prem match. That's a great comment, Cole. Thanks for your donation. And I agree with Colin. I mean, this is why we always talk about my favourite word at the minute, Oscar, which is the ecosystem, the Premier League ecosystem. And we can use that for a separate video. But just to answer your comment a little bit there, Colin. Yeah, I mean, they've got to look at Burnley. They've got to look at Burnley because I think it's becoming rarer and rarer and rarer. I mean, you look at the last 10 years, how many teams have done a Leeds United in that first season? I can think of Sheffield United. I can maybe think of Leeds United in terms of that top 10 and thriving in your first season. It doesn't really happen. So we are looking at a battle right now. Even if we were to get promoted next season, we know we're going to be in a relegation battle. So we've all got to get prepared for that. There's not going to be ridiculous wins under our belts. And I think Burnley are in that battle right now. Will they get out? I don't think they will. But this is unfortunately the problem that a lot of teams face going into the Premier League. The level is just so high. The mid teams are so good, and even the lower teams, the amount of money they spend on the side. You look at Forest, Everton, teams like that, the amount of money that they've spent on their sides over an 8 to 9 year period. Maybe not Nottingham Forest, but Everton and other sides who've remained in the division for years and years and years and years and sold and bought and developed a squad. That's why it was so surprising when Leicester and Southampton went down, because of all the talent they'd accrued over the years. Now they were in the Championship. But I think overall, the ecosystem of that division is so difficult, and getting it right is so difficult. So, to stay up past those 2 seasons is a massive, massive achievement, isn't it, Oscar? So, yeah, Leeds have got to do it. Leeds have got to do it really well. Yeah, Wolves is another one in there as well, says Paul Gray and John.
Yeah, and you look at these teams, you've kind of alluded to it, Connor, and the fact that Forest is 17th, they've got people like Morgan Gibbs-White playing, obviously in the 10 role, who I think...
A 1 year as well.
1 year up top. Yeah. Anthony Elanga, who's actually having a really good season. Callum Hudson-Odoi, players like that. Yeah, all right, maybe they're not top 6 players in the Premier League, but the players that you look at and think, oof, that's pretty good to have at Premier League level. I mean, we were getting excited when we had Jack Harrison in the Premier League. The quality has stepped up quite a bit, if you know what I mean. In terms of Everton, Everton have got people like Onana in midfield. He's a quality player. Branthwaite coming through, I think it's a top quality player as well. So Palace, you've got Elise and Eze, they're struggling as well. Fulham, you got Willian, people like that, Pereira, Paulinho. There's at least with every single team, other than those teams that are in that bottom 3. Even look at Luton, in terms of what Luton have got, in terms of in midfield. Ross Barkley and his name's just escaped me, Sambi Lokonga in midfield. That is their midfield pairing. That would pass for a top 10 midfield pairing. So these teams have all got quality, in certain areas. So there is most definitely a bigger test to come. If we do get promoted, we would have to invest in certain areas, and Somerville and Rutter would have to adapt to the level in the same way that Gibbs-White has, or Eze has, or Elise has. And that's by no means a given, by the way. I think they will, but I don't think it's by any means a given. How many players in that Burnley team did we think, oh, they'll be all right in the Premier League? They were far too good for the Championship, and they just haven't performed. But I think the thing with Burnley is they've tried to change too much too soon. If you look at the actual team they're starting with, they have made signings, but they've tried to integrate too many players at once, kind of thing. And I think they've brought the wrong players as well, in a lot of areas, in terms of for quite a young team. And I don't feel like that's something we're going to do. I think we have got that young core already there. I just think, for me, we'll add players in that sort of 25 to 28 bracket. Players that are coming into their peak or have already been there and done it at Premier League level. With Nick Hammond, we've certainly gone for that kind of been there, done that at similar levels at Championship. In terms of how he's brought in Ampadu, how he brought in Joe Rose, and how he brought in Perot. We've gone for that kind of been there, done that kind of mentality with the players. And I think we'll do the same in the Prem. With Burnley, they haven't really done that. They've took high risks. Don't get me wrong, Odebear looks a quality player, but they haven't really supplemented him with similar quality around him. So that's definitely an issue. I think the other thing with Burnley as well is Vincent Kompany just hasn't adapted to the Premier League. He has still tried to play. He's still taking on teams like Man City away, like it's, trying to think of a Preston at home or something like that. He's still going about it the same way. And listen, it worked for Bielsa But I
Yeah, it
think
worked. It did work for Bielsa, and maybe a few were taken. And in all fairness, it did happen. It worked with Wilder as well, didn't it?
yeah, it did. But after time, and you look at those managers, how much more experience they had, and how much older their squads were as well, in terms of they had played at this level before,
Yeah,
at Premier
yeah.
League level. With Burnley, I don't think that is the case. So I didn't think Burnley would struggle this badly, but I maybe wasn't quite on board with this. At the start of the season when people were saying, "Oh, Burnley will be mid-table," I never really felt that either. I just thought they'd be kind of like 15th, 16th, and not doing as bad as what they have done. But I never really saw that with Burnley that they were that good. And similar with us and Leicester, really, I still think both of us would, you know, we're looking at 15th downwards, aren't we? If we're being
Yeah,
honest,
yeah, yeah. 100%.
unless we have, like I say, a Fulham this year or last year, Brentford in previous years in terms of adapts to the league that way. But
Yeah.
I think the league as a whole has improved a lot, in the
I
last
think
sort
I
of
think
18
I
months.
think year on year it gets, the bottom side spend so much money. You've seen Bournemouth do it very, very recently,
Yeah,
and they just build and build and build and build and build, and you forget how many, like even Brentford now, Oscar. Brentford have been in the division a decent amount of years now. Bournemouth, another one who've been in the
but the
and you
fact
forget, oh,
Brentford's are struggling so
yeah,
much this season, and you can't tell me Brentford are drastically worse. If anything, Brentford should be better this season than last season because
of
they've got
course,
Tony
yeah.
back, now. Yeah, and it hasn't really made a massive difference. I think I'm not saying Brentford have been found out or anything. I just think the quality around them has improved. Bournemouth, I think, are having a really good season. Got a really good setup there. Got a really good coach, etc., etc. They're about 13th, 14th, and only about
14th,
8
yeah.
points above. So it is very much competitive. There's no doubt about it. And then you look at teams like Wolves and that lot, who at the start of the season, I think most would have said they'll definitely struggle, and they're like eighth. So it is swings and roundabouts really. But I think ultimately the overwhelming factor is the league is definitely improving year in, year out, and it's the investment into the league is huge. In terms of you've seen with the step down in terms of the teams going into the championship, how easily they've come back up. Sheffield United last season, they would be fifth this season, if we're being honest, in terms of going into
Oh,
this league
yeah.
this
Oh,
year.
oh, yeah,
There's
yeah.
no way.
I mean, they'd be battling it out with Hull, really, I
But
think.
they were second by about 15 points, I think, by the end of the season. So there's no doubt about it. I think in the top two levels, I think even the championship in terms of compared to other top European leagues now, other than say your big five or six, it's probably starting to find its way in front of those leagues quality
I
wise.
think
So
I think
there's
I
no
think
doubt
I think
about
I
it.
think I think 14 is right, though. Burnley had Maatsen and Tella, two superstars
That's
on
true
loan,
as well.
you gotta think, like, those 2 on loan in the Championship, and yeah, it's different, but let's not get too, sidetracked, but it's a really, really interesting chat. Oscar, I'm going to, ask you one question, and I'm gonna ask the chat one question. I wanna get your thoughts before we get into Chelsea, but which I wanna come on to in just a little second, but, um everybody in the chat, yes or no? Oscar, yes or no with a brief explanation. If we get to the Premier League, should Calvin Phillips be our first signing? Answer, please, Oscar. Yes or no, and a brief explanation on why.
No, for me. I think the big reason for it is his last two seasons, and in terms of performance level and injuries, is probably the biggest thing for me. It's the injuries. In terms of we saw last season the dangers of having too many injury prone players. Luis Sinisterra is the prime example. When Sinisterra was fit, we were flying. We were not flying, but we were much better than what we were over the whole season. And Sinisterra played well, but he wasn't fit, and that's the issue. We've got to stop signing injury prone players, and that's something we've done really well this season. And that's the issue with Calvin Phillips. It's not necessarily a quality issue. I'm just looking at the other options we've got in midfield in terms of Ampadu, Gruev, Kamara. I'm not saying they're necessarily better players than Calvin Phillips, but in terms of availability, there is no question they're far more reliable in that sense. So that's the main factor for me. And you're looking at his form at West Ham as well. It's not great. I would rather see another team take the risk, really. And it's very much head over heart, but we can't be sentimental next season. Whole thing that cost us last season was sentiment. We can't then go and make the same mistake again.
Couldn't agree more, Oscar. Couldn't agree more. So Chelsea. Tomorrow, starting lineup. I'm sort of looking at a scenario, and I'll fly some names to you, over to you. Ilan Mele in net. I'd potentially be looking at Connor Roberts at right back. I'd potentially then be looking at Cooper and Cresswell. Left back Firpo, and I really wouldn't if we had another option, but because I think he's close to. It feels like he's getting closer to that injury. But in midfield, maybe a Gruev and Kamara balance again, and up top, I'd probably be looking at I reckon a James, Lonzo on the other side, Perot and Bamford. What are you changing there, mate?
So you think we'll rest that many key players?
I don't think we will, but that's what I would be doing. What
Okay,
would
so
you do?
okay. For me, it's one of those. I mean, is Ampadu definitely injured in this game?
I don't think it was Ampadu, was it? Was it Ampadu? Oh, he said it. Was it? Or was it? I
I
thought.
thought it was Ampadu, wasn't it?
I thought it was Rutter and Somerville. Let us know in the chat who it was.
I was thinking it was Ampadu, Rutter, and Somerville. To be fair,
I'm sorry. That's no coincidence, is it? Suddenly, like the three best players are out.
yeah. In fact, that was the tweet I remember seeing. Is that our three
Oh, there
best
we
players
go.
are out? This is
There we
great
go.
timing. I think there's a tweet. I can't remember who tweeted it, but anyway, say if Ampadu is fit, I would want to see Ampadu playing. To be honest, in this game,
Guess it's Chelsea as well, isn't it?
yeah, the stat factor as well. I think if from Amty's point of view, you probably do want to prove a point against £100 million midfielders who he's been kicked out the door for, effectively, if we're being totally honest. So yeah, probably go Ampadu for Cooper in that case.
Forgot about
Yeah.
Matteo Joseph as well. Forgot about Joseph.
Yeah, Matthew Jones. I definitely agree with Conor Roberts at right back. I think it's a good opportunity to get Roberts in the team. He's got experience against this kind of opposition, having played so much Premier League football. But yeah, other than that, if Russell and Somerville are out, then I can't really disagree too much with that front four. And the midfield kind of picks itself at this moment in time. So that's probably the only change I would make. Of Joe Rodon as well, actually. If Joe Rodon's available, Joe Rodon goes in for me too. I do get it in terms of the risk of injuries, but you also don't want to go into that Huddersfield game off the back of, say, a 4-0 defeat or something like that. You know, I don't think we would lose the game 4-0, but I don't really want to take that risk either in terms of. I see the thing out of the FA Cup. The FA Cup is always kind of on my mind is as to how it disrupts our seasons, both good and bad. I always look back at
I know you're gonna say
Sutton United, how much that affected us.
I thought you were gonna say in terms of influence when we beat Man United and then
Well,
what
there's
happened
that as well. I
afterwards.
was going to say about the good side of it. When we beat Man United, our league form dropped off a cliff, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that was, partly because we had quite a short squad at that point, and we really were struggling, in terms of fatigue-wise towards the end of that season. But I certainly look at that Sutton United year under Gary Monk in terms of how badly we dropped off psychologically after that. And thinking, you just never want to take that risk again. And listen, Sutton and Chelsea, totally different matches, but losing, say, 4 or 5-0 at Chelsea is kind of the same effect, if you like. That's something I don't want to take too much of a risk with. And yes, and as much as I know Chelsea have been average this season, we have just seen them beat Middlesbrough 6-1, sorry. And we've seen how much that affected Middlesbrough since that. Their league form,
I completely forgot about that. Yeah.
Their league form has dropped off, other than when they beat Leicester, actually. Every other game, I think they've lost since then, pretty much. So, yeah, that is a bit of a concern to me.
So is it a must-win for you tomorrow then?
No, it's just compete. That's all I'm asking for, in terms, and I think that's what we will do. It's not must-win, but it's definitely must compete, if you like. And we have to show we can adapt to this level. And ultimately, it will be a good benchmark for, certain players. Ampadu's one as well. Can he compete, against the very best in the Premier League? Chelsea didn't think he could. He has played for Chelsea.
So where are we looking at Chelsea's weaknesses then, Oscar? Being the football Lothario you are.
Definitely, for watching the cup final, yes, I know quality-wise, Liverpool, etc., etc. But even when they had the kids on Liverpool, in transition, that Chelsea team's struggling. In terms of Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, neither of them have a fixed role. I think they're both outstanding footballers, by the way. I think they're very, very talented footballers who probably have just made awful career moves for themselves, really. But definitely in transition, you see that midfield opens up. It does open up quite easily. On the wings as well, I don't think they defend those situations particularly well. I think Gusto isn't the best defender in the world. He's good going forward, but he can be got at.
He's very defensive.
And Chilwell is only just getting back into the team as well.
What is it with Chilwell and Leeds though? He's always the best player on the pitch when he comes up against Leeds, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's a horrible player as well, Ben Chilwell. He's one of those players that I'd say I have an irrational dislike of, but then I watched him against Liverpool and I thought, no, it's rational. He is just, yeah. I'm not going to swear on your channel and that lot, but
It'd be quite.
yeah,
I think maybe a good battle down there would be James versus Chilwell,
yeah.
wouldn't it?
Because Chilwell pushes high. Both the fullbacks push high. You're looking at Dan James there. Catching him in transition. Catching the high line in transition. If they do start a Thiago Silva, for example, can Patrick Bamford get in behind him and cause problems in that kind of sense? So that's definitely a weakness for Chelsea. I think on the ball as well, you have to look at Chelsea. It is a bit of a mess, really, but they have so much quality individually. It kind of gets them out of it a lot of the time, or some of the time, if you like. And against us, maybe that will be the case for him, but they're
It's going to be a
definitely
strong. It's
lacking.
going to be a strong. It's going to be a strong team for them as well. I think
Yeah, they have to win.
It's
This is
It's Poch's last chance, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
going
the
to be their
last
full
trophy they can
strength.
win this season. They're not going to finish in Europe this year. I think they've pretty much written off their league campaign. It's the last trophy they can win. If they do lose tomorrow, I think it is Pochettino gone. To be
Yeah, I
honest,
do.
I think we would put that final nail in the coffin for Pochettino. But certainly in terms of efficiency in front of goal, that's another thing. You look at Chelsea and think they do actually create a fair bit, but maybe don't lack the killer in front of goal as much as all the talent they've got. In terms of Sterling, Palmer, are they killers in front of goal? Does that give us a bit of hope? Who knows? But listen, we have to stop Cole Palmer tomorrow. He is head
Yeah,
and
we do.
shoulders their best player at this moment in time. Certainly in that final third, he will definitely play. I think he definitely will be in that 10 role. And I think, even there's a case potentially of putting Ampadu into midfield tomorrow and saying, go and mark Cole Palmer and show what you can do in that kind of sense. There is a case of that. But he's definitely the difference maker for Chelsea. So, yeah, he's a player to watch out for. But for all that quality, there's definitely areas we can get at. And I
Well,
think
there's
you've
always
seen with
hope.
Chelsea.
There's always hope in the cup, isn't there? As well.
Yeah,
There's
there
always
is, and
hope.
I think more so than ever. Again, it's the best time to play Chelsea. This for me, in terms of not just this week and that lot this season. It says this is a good time to play Chelsea. We can't be going into this game with any fear. We can hurt Chelsea tomorrow. We can potentially ruin Chelsea's whole season. Get a manager sacked off the back of it tomorrow. It's not likely, but we can do that. We have got it in us to do it. And we've seen Chelsea. How many times this season have Chelsea dropped points against teams in that bottom six in the Premier League? Got beat by Forest, got beat by Brentford. Trying to think the other ones as well. They dropped another big one at home as well. So they haven't been ruthless against the Leicester teams this season. So we'll see. But there's definitely areas in that Liverpool game that we can adapt to ourselves in terms of how we play. So we will see.
We'll leave it at that, mate. What's your score prediction?
I will go. Ooh. Oh, I'm going to try and think now. Does it go to extra time if it's level at 90?
I think so, yeah.
I can see it going to extra time,
Let us know in the chat if it does go to extra time. I'm pretty sure it does.
I'll go for 1-1. 1-1, we win on penalties. I'm gonna go for it. 1-1, we win on penalties.
You think extra time, and then 3 days later we play Huddersfield at midday.
But it's Leeds, isn't it? That is the most Leeds thing to do. Like the nightmare scenario for Leeds would be it goes to extra time and we lose on penalties. But
Oh yeah,
no,
yeah.
I feel with us, there's enough good penalty takers in the squad to yeah. And I think Chelsea, looking at Chelsea taking penalties, yeah, I'd kind of back us if it got to that scenario. Reality is Chelsea should win the game comfortably. If it's anything other than that, it's quite embarrassing from Poch's point of view. And listen, if Chelsea only won, like, say, 2-1 or something, and we dominated the game, I could still see Pochettino getting sacked after that, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
It's so hostile at this moment in time, and there's so much doubt about Poch.
Yeah.
And if we did score first, Connor, I would have a lot of confidence of us going on to win, to be honest. I really would.
Ryan's gone with a 5-1 Chelsea. Jasper
5-1.
says 2-1 Leeds United, 90 minutes, don't need extra time. Yeah, I don't know. I think, Oscar, a really valiant performance. And I think Leeds definitely score. But I don't know with this. I've got a bit of a 2-1 Leeds up until half time. It'd been an absolutely nuts start. And then maybe Chelsea running away with it a little bit in the second half, maybe a 4-2 finish. Oh, it's negative, isn't it? But I've not been negative. I've not been negative at all on the channel, really, when it's come to score predictions. But I do wonder about that. that squad depth, to be honest with you. I mean, even daft things
I
like
don't think it's a couple of people in the comments have said it's outrageous to say, well, alluded to saying it's outrageous to say we can beat Chelsea tomorrow. It's not outrageous. You know, teams have gone to Chelsea and got results, but Middlesbrough beat them. Okay, it was at home in the cup and looked comfortable in the game. They are very much beatable. This Chelsea team. This is not a Chelsea team that's on a good run at all. This is a Chelsea team that if we score first or even start the game well, that crowd will turn pretty quickly on Pochettino and the players. It's already very tense with certain individuals.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's your 50 minutes, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please make sure you slap a like on the video before leaving. Make sure you subscribe as always. Get your comments in after the video as well. We do read them all. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we will see you in a bit. Cheers.